Wars are fought with soldiers, but wars are won with money, guns, tanks, ships, supplies. Every bullet has a price, and someone has to pay it. Behind every war, there's always a banker. In the early 20th century, Europe went to war. World War I, they called it. It lasted for 4 long years. Millions of people died, and at the end of it, an uneasy peace was established. But it did not last. Just 2 decades later, the world was at war again. World War II, they called it. This time it was even bloodier. More than 100 million people were mobilized. Entire communities were wiped out. And when it ended, the world was left to pick up the pieces. These wars defined a generation. They changed the world order. They created new weapons and new alliances. But what if I told you there was a third force behind them? Something that started the wars, profited from the wars, and ended the wars? What if I told you there was a bank that funded both sides of war? The bank wasn't British, it wasn't American, it wasn't even European. It was Swiss. The name was the Bank of International Settlements, and it was based in But it wasn't just a regular bank. It was a cartel of central banks. The shareholders included some of the most powerful banks in the world: Deutsche Bank, HSBC, UBS, Credit Suisse, and together they controlled the money supply of nations. The BIS was like an army with no uniform, a weapon without a trigger. It couldn't wage war itself, but it could help either side wage war, and it did. During World War I, the BIS provided loans to the Allied powers. France, Britain, and Russia needed weapons, ammunition, and food. They needed men and machines. They needed everything that comes with fighting a war. And where did that money come from? It came from the German economy. The shareholders of the BIS were making money off the war, but they weren't taking sides. That's not how banks work. It doesn't matter who wins or loses. All that matters is moving money. If the Allied powers needed money, they would pay the bank and the bank would move it to the shareholders. Same thing with the Central Powers. If Germany needed money, they paid the bank and the bank moved it to the shareholders. It was a brilliant system. It made the bank indispensable. In fact, it still does. The bank that funded both sides of World War I still exists today. It still moves money around the world. It still influences governments. And it still decides who wins or loses. The only difference now is the name. After World War I, the Bank of International Settlements was renamed. Today, it's called the Bank for International Settlements. But it's the same institution, the same building, the same shareholders, the same bosses, the same soldiers. Nothing changed except the name. But why? Why did the bank fund both sides of the war? Was it really just about profit? Was it really just about money? Well, not entirely. See, the bank did have limits. It could lend money to both sides, but it couldn't take sides. It could fund the weapons industry, but it couldn't wage war. The bank was a tool. It was an extension of the state, and its job was to keep the money flowing. That's all. It didn't care about nationalism. It didn't care about patriotism. It didn't care about legacy. All it cared about was survival. Today we live in a world where there are no physical borders. There are invisible ones, yes. But when it comes to trade, there are no borders, and trade needs money. Trade needs banks, and trade, above all, needs stability. The Bank for International Settlements was set up after World War I to prevent another war. The idea was to stabilize economies. If the money kept flowing, the theory went, there would be no reason for war. And for a while it worked. Europe rebuilt itself, economies grew, people forgot about war. But then it happened again. World War II, and the BIS was right in the middle of it. Once again the bank was funding both sides. Once again the bank was fueling the war machine. After the war, the BIS tried to downplay its role. It said it was just a cog in the wheel, just a passive bystander. But records tell a different story. They show the bank was deeply involved, funded both sides of World War II. And the question is, how could this happen? How could a single bank influence the outcome of 2 world wars? Well, here's how. The bank never took sides. It always stayed above the conflict, never got involved in politics. All it cared about was money. And that gave it incredible power. When 2 armies are fighting, there will always be a third party that's profiting from the war. Sometimes it's a merchant, sometimes it's a broker, sometimes it's a politician. But more often than not, it's a bank. During wartime, the biggest expense is not bombs or tanks or bullets, it's debt. You see, every loan taken during war is a liability. Who will pay it back? When? How? And under what terms? These questions decide the outcome of any war. And that's where the bank that funds both sides has the advantage. While 2 armies are destroying each other, the bank is sitting pretty. While 2 governments are fighting it out, the bank is making money. While 2 nations are waging war, the bank is winning.